strong statement. Strong statement. And Mike's brain, that's green. It's positive. It's a positive shift. So that's the y-axis. The x-axis is, was it an observation or was it an action? Some sense of something that has to happen. And I do urge you, maybe not tonight because we're going to rush from this session and make sure everyone gets on the ferry and over to the dinner tonight. But this is a fantastic resource for everyone to look at some of the clustering. A lot of negative comments and concerns around economic and geopolitical volatility at all scales, by the way. This cluster goes up and down all the way down to the individual level. A really positive set around the progress that we are all committed to and working on in energy and decarbonisation. Quite positive, but a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of observation to agency on talent and welfare. And I think it came out a few points earlier about the sense that there is more we can be doing and some insights coming out in this group. And the most negative and community individual level that people were feeling really personally challenged by is particularly war and war in Ukraine. Global collaboration, right there in the middle, and the perception of the industry also a little bit divided. So a really even split in sentiment. The engine came up with 35 negative, 34 positive. Observations tended to be more negative, but actions were more positive, and the industry insights overwhelmingly positive. And a lot of the negative observations that appeared were reframed by someone else's opportunities. So thank you, everyone, for that exercise. I do urge you to come and have a look. This is what you were feeling like this morning. Now, the exercise we just did in patch 3 was around the principles that can help guide collaborative action as we move forward. So what I need is for someone to throw up one post-it note in their hand, a principle that they brought from their patch. Just one person. Please, can you just get you a microphone? Read out the principle that you have there.
Really straightforward one. Care for your people.
Care for your people, a great one. Now, the way this is going to work is if any other group has a post-it note or a principle that says care for your people or similar, anything about welfare, hold it up now. Who else has got something similar? Okay, Value Web, come around and grab that and we'll put it up as a cluster around welfare and caring for people. Okay, another post-it note. Please, Harris. Be brave, stop looking at barriers, look for solutions. Can we grab that? Thank you. Who else had something about being brave and looking at the solution side? Hold it up high. The Value Web will come and take it and we'll get a cluster. Being brave, stop looking at barriers. All right, fantastic. We'll get that out. Thank you. Here we go, Jody. All right, something different. Who's got something different? There we go. Can we have a microphone just over there?
Thank you. Listen with an open mind.
Listen with an open mind. Is it, just say a little bit more. Listen to whom in particular?
Listen to the stakeholders, whether it's your people, your employees, or whether it's your customers.
Thank you very much. Who else had something about listening, taking in information, being engaged with stakeholders? Yep. One here, a listening cluster. All right, something different. Yes, sir. Or is that's the same? That's the same. All right. Same. Okay. A different one. Here, different one. Over here, a microphone just here at the front.
Thank you. Be flexible in your planning.
Be flexible in your planning. Did you have something in particular in mind when you meant flexibility? Is that?
Keep optionality in your plans. Keep as much as possible, given the uncertainty that we face the next few years.
Fantastic. Yeah, optionality, open mind to uncertainty. Don't pick one particular scenario and put all the eggs in that basket. Did anyone have anything about that, about being resilient to multiple scenarios, flexibility, openness? Hold it up if you've got that. Okay, here. Thank you. Flexibility. All right, a new one, sir.
We need to share both the burden, namely cash, in order to be able to bear the fruits of this transition.
So you get to share the burden.
Share the burden as a community.
Yep.
In order to also
Absolutely. And you know, my definition of partnership, having worked in partnering for a long time, is exactly that. A partnership is only where both the burden is shared and the risks and the upside is shared. If a partner is just a transaction, then that's not really a partnership. That's just a transfer of value in one way. So who else had something about sharing the burden and sharing the upside? Yeah, fantastic. Jan, kind of, enough to cluster. All right, who's got something different? We're going to go until we run out of these things. Sir, and then we'll come back to the back. Please.
Using global maritime and trade as a voice to encourage collaboration between the US and China.
Using maritime trade as a voice to encourage the relationship between collaboration between US and China. So basically, maritime trade as an impetus for that relationship. Really interesting, positive, kind of global push on this as well. Who had something about US and China that was positive in that way? Anyone? It might be a cluster of one, but it's a great one. Someone put their name out the back. I think that's not doing it injustice at all. It's a fantastic suggestion. There was someone held a post-it note. Yes, sir, standing at the back there. Hold on 1 second, and then we'll get you a microphone.
Yeah, ours was realism. Be realistic. And that doesn't mean you can be aspirational and realistic at the same time. And I think the corollary we had in our group was it's important to have a vision, but make sure you're not hallucinating.
Yeah. I think that was my key takeaway from the deep dives. I don't know how many of you felt that was a really, really good. Be pragmatic. Thank you, Harris. A really great sense of pragmatism and realism came from this morning's session that I thought then flowed really usefully. So be realistic. Don't let it stop you being aspirational. Any others that had anything along the same lines, please throw your hand up. Otherwise, who else has got something new? Yep. If we can get a mic down. The gentleman, yes, just standing. Yeah, there we go. To you, sir.
We had be open to innovation and risk mitigation structures.
Be open to innovation and risk mitigation structures. In risk mitigation. Okay, who had something about risk and innovation? Any others? Yes, as a person, just the gentleman at the back there. Fantastic. I think that's a good one. And then, sir, right next to you, yes.
Yeah, clear near-term objectives with long-term perspective, like in realistic 2030 action with the long-term perspective.
Great. Who had something about the clarity or the usefulness of the short term here? Anyone?
So it's the progress will require hard deadlines.
The progress will require hard deadlines. I think that's absolutely right. If you want to, and this is a terrible analogy, I'm not going to give it. I was going to say when you play golf, but I don't play golf. But it's about those long shots in the short game, right? If you don't aim short, you don't hit the long shot. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't play golf. And it's a terrible analogy. Okay, we'll leave that one. We're going to leave that behind. We're in shipping metaphors today. Who else has got something? Sir, in the middle there with the blue shirt.
Thanks. Embrace change.
Embrace change. Who had something about transformation, change, innovation, general? Grab the post-it note, okay. Put your hand up if you've got a post-it note left. There's a couple of people. Harris, what have you got left here?
Sharing of knowledge, sharing data, transparency.
Sharing knowledge, sharing data, transparency about knowledge and data. Sharing data in general, I remember in 2020 I was working with the WTO on economic trade data, and the number of calls I had to make to try and get real-time data into the WTO system because it was all historical, like 6-month-year-old data that was in all the modeling was incredible for the world's peak organization on trade and on trade in particular. So someone else had anything about trade and data? No? Okay. Point here. Jim.
Use energy transition and transition and decarbonization as a way to reposition the maritime as an attractive industry.
Repositioning maritime as an attractive industry, and using decarbonization. Okay, anyone had there about, yep, great. Same one, perfect. Okay, we're getting still some clusters going. Take that. Okay, I can still see a few pieces of blue paper. Ma'am, can you, what have you got on there? ESG is inherently complex. Yes. So one of the points that came up is we have talked a little bit about the S, a fair amount about the G, but not as much perhaps about the social aspect as we could have. We tend to focus on the environmental aspect. They all relate to one another. All right, who else has got a few things? Let's get a few out. Can we get a mic just there?
I've still got all three of ours.
Oh, well, why
Would
don't
you like them all at once?
Give them one at a time, but slowly, so that we can crowd in the others.
The first one is minimise waste, increase efficiency.
Minimise waste, increase efficiency. Did anyone have bingo? Oh my goodness. Really? No one's minimising waste? Okay, that's a good one. If you pass that one on.
The second one is net zero solutions must be safe and equitable.
Safe and equitable solution. Great.
And the third one is quantifiable climate action in shipping. So we must be able to quantify what we're doing and be able to measure that we're achieving it.
Quantify, measurable. Okay. Now, who has something that really is off the wall compared to what we've mentioned today? So at the back, yep, let's get a microphone to you, sir. Thank you, it's coming.
Okay, I've got two left. The first one is, in running our companies, we should adopt a transparent and holistic approach all the way from the CEO down to the front line to pursuing the solutions to the challenges.
Right, transparent and holistic to pursuing the solutions,
Company-wide.
right from the top. Yep, and what's your second one, sir?
I'm surprised this hasn't come up yet. No company can achieve the necessary solutions on its own. Collaboration is vital.
Did anyone else have collaboration or send it out? Yep, okay, great. We're going to do one more minute on this little domino game. Anyone had something that's a little bit different? Yep, there's three. Let's take those three comments there at the back. Let's start with Virginia. In the red top? Okay, no, that's fine. Yep.
My group believes that we're not going to succeed in achieving any of these goals without firm leadership by individuals and by firms.
Firm leadership by individuals and firms. Yep. Great. We've got two more comments up here, and then we'll go to you at the back, sir. So just 1 second. Yep.
We have inspire regulation through voluntary action.
Inspire regulation through voluntary action, and that's exactly what many of you are doing already. There's one more comment, I think, here. Keep passing those post-it notes down to the front.
Okay, so this is a little bit of a different take on what we just heard. Was universal regulation, levies, and governance are essential to drive decarbonization.
The importance of regulation. I think we can make a little cluster around linking those two. And thank you, sir, for your patience.
The problem and the opportunity is bigger than shipping. Aggregate demand across industries to drive scalable solutions.
Yeah. Yeah, aggregating demand, realizing those interconnections. And I think Sven Torra really raised that this morning with the point around how important and integrated the fertilizer and chemicals industry is, both as a shipper, as an energy solution, and as a customer for the solutions we have here as well. One more post-it note. Does anyone have anything else they want to share? Yeah, please, I'll give you the mic.
One more, adopt a long-term and more systemic approach.
A long-term and more systemic approach. I think that's the opposite of the short-term one that we had earlier. So let me just quickly, you can see what's being written up here by Lucia and others. Be brave, look for solutions, be flexible and open-minded. Use the maritime sector to foster US-China relations. Share data. Make sure that you solve for the short term as you're pursuing the long term and have those short-term goals. Be realistic, pragmatic. Remember, this is about a complex ESG story, not just one aspect of decarbonisation. We talked a lot about decarbonisation. It's incredibly important, but it plays into the much bigger picture of what we're trying to achieve. Safe and equitable solutions and quantifiable and transparent climate actions, including transparency within your organisation from top to bottom. A great point. Over here, partnership is sharing the pain, the cost, as well as the upside. So we need to really focus on what does that mean for all of us. Be innovative in how you mitigate and manage risks. Have leadership, really individual leadership. That's, I think, what all of you are already doing. We had 2 points there on regulation. An excellent point about minimizing waste throughout. That's often the lowest hanging fruit in terms of efficiency gains. Focus on the welfare of your talent. Embrace the change, the transformation. Think about decarbonization as an asset for the industry, as a way to make the industry more attractive as a whole. And finally, and I think most importantly, something we've been practicing today, listen and engage with stakeholders. Engaging, exhausting, around everywhere. There are some things in your head that haven't made the board here. Elephant in the room. There's something you haven't addressed that if you in the audience, if you walk out of here without saying, I should have put that on the table in front of the group, and if I don't have the chance to do it, it might not come up tomorrow. Does anyone have anything really burning, a conflict, a paradox, something missing that they want to raise? If the answer is not, then I have to give due credit to the Global Maritime Forum and for flushing out everything from your brain. Yes, my friend from the Marshall Islands.
Equity.
Equity.
Equitable transition.
Yep. Yep. And equity works on multiple levels, a national level, a community level, a sector level. Equity. Let's make sure that's up there. Fleming.
Thank you. The one point that we had in the end as well was that it is ESG. Many look at the E, the G, they take it for granted that corporations are well run. The S, to some extent, is we have to take good care of our people, and that's where we should be spending the money. And that includes the seafarers and so on. One thing that hasn't quite found its way up there yet, that is that should we collectively also use the S to develop other people from developing countries? I come back to Africa and say that there's lots of opportunities. That's why I raised that the young population that is in Africa, the youngest average age, and just say that should we collectively create or help to create maritime education in Africa, and through that help in the S side that group of nations to become part of the maritime industry going forward.
Thank you very much. And I think that points to both a specific opportunity and a general question of where we draw the boundaries of our ambition and our responsibility with our companies, with the communities and stakeholders we work with. How far geographically and sector-wise do we go and invest? How far time-wise, you're talking about young people, how long a time frame of investment do we need to think in order to really develop the next generation of talent and caring for that for the industry? I have a kind of final, oh yes, please, I'll pass you the mic.
No, I just want to say as an overall, I mean, the people who are in this room make commitment just by coming here and participate at Global Maritime Forum, but one of the challenges we have as an industry, as there are a lot of stakeholders who are not taking part on this international agenda. So I think it's really important that we also discuss incentives to get the people who don't have the obvious incentives to join the better way forward. How do we get them to the table? How do we incentivize them? Is that through clients, customers, investors? But I think it's a very important discussion to have there. We will never be done with recruitment on getting the full industry on board on this, and there has to be a strategy for incentivizing the full industry to play ball, so to speak.
Yeah, there's always a really important question in collective action of this type, and something that Jane Nelson will be talking about tomorrow, which is, at what point does this tip from being a small group of committed leaders into just an inevitability where there's a pull and a push in general across the industry and across the sector? I think most of you would probably agree with me we're not there yet. There was a statement on stage earlier that 50% of the trade, particularly in container trade, is about 1,000 companies. 1,000 is not that big a number in terms of being able to convince shareholders and groups, but it's still just 50%. So what is the tipping point? Is the tipping point you all moving your immediate partners to that next level, or do we need to have a 10 times increase in commitment from here? It's an important question because it creates that cascading effect. And the one thing that I took away from this morning's deep dives is what we can't do is say, this will happen if only someone else does something, right? That way ruin lies, right? I think there are two traps that came out from today that I really took away. One is expecting others to move is a folly. And none of you are doing that. But there's still the danger that we just have to wait for the IMO to do X and then suddenly everything will be okay. We all need to keep the pressure up. The second big trap is that we can get a little bit depressed by being pragmatic and look at the fact that we're already really missing that 1.5 degree warming set of targets. And to get there is just incredibly hard. But we still have to do it. We still have to keep pushing to that, even though we know that that particular set of action is a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of systems work to create the incentives to make sure that we can solve these problems like equity, right? Because one person on stage was calling for equity and transfers and development, and another person was saying we're going to increase fuel costs by 4 or 5 times in order to solve this through market-based measures. We need to manage those aspects as well. So a final question before I send you off and we head to dinner. What would be different about the world if everyone in the maritime industry, in the sector, were acting on these principles? Imagine all the industry suddenly had this moment of this is it. This is what it looks like. I am signing. I'm a personal leader. I'm going to shift my company incentives. I'm going to work with regulators. I'm going to convince politicians and governments to create the right incentives. What would change? What would be different tomorrow? What would be different next week? What would that actually look like? Can someone give me the picture of what that actually feels like if these principles get deeply embedded in those, not just us here today, but others? What's different? This gentleman at the back.
I think you'll take down barriers and create trust. So it's like trying to make a chemical reaction without water in your body. That's exactly what you'll do. You'll introduce, the needed part to make the electrolysis or whatever thing happen.
So it would increase trust, the first thing it would do. So suddenly you'd be able to talk and plan and work together far more easily, so that chemical reaction would go faster, would be possible. What else would be different? So if suddenly you knew that every one of your competitors was thinking like this, what would be your next move? This is what we're trying to go for, right? You've all said, these are the principles I want to see. So imagine this is true. These are the principles that are driving everyone, not just you. They're driving the entire maritime sector. What do you do next?
I think it gives you a seat at the table that you don't have at the moment. I think if as an industry we're able to find a way to collaborate as a whole industry, we'd be doing something that very few industries can do. And I think the perception then would be completely different. I think you'd be involved in developing new projects and new infrastructure in a way that we're not at the moment.
Yeah, fantastic. Seat at the table, visibility, credibility, engagement with other industries. Sir, a gentleman at the back.
It would make it easier to attract the talent that we need to crack some of these challenges. And I think, when you get the best brains around the table and the best youth around the table, it's actually amazing what can happen.
Yeah, it'd be easier to crowd in the talent to help make this move. Any final comments? What else? Please. We'll just get you a microphone because we're live streamed as well. I should have mentioned that. We're live streamed.
I think in order for any of this to come true, people have to step up, order the ships, buy the green fuels, put out their RFPs. You have to be a first mover. A lot of people here sign that first mover convention.
Yeah.
People are collaborating in order to go, but it does take the companies actually saying, we want to buy X amount of green fuels, we will invest, we will give you an offtake. There should be people offering offtakes. There should be people who are helping to build the facilities that will produce green fuels. So, I mean, this has to happen by people making actual movements, real investments, and real commitments.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think that would be, as an economist, that would be my expectation of the first thing that would happen if everyone looked at this, would be suddenly people would think, if I don't invest now in the port infrastructure, in the zero-emission vessels, in the committing to the offtake, etc., I'm not going to be able to work in this world, because this is a different world to the world that we're in now. This is a different world, the world that you've laid out. It's going to lead us to a more sustainable, more resilient world. But I guess my final message for you all today, as we finish this amazing session, and I thank you for all the hard work you've done today, and we prepare to go into tomorrow some real action areas as well, is this is what you want everyone to commit to. This is what you are already committing to. Let's get ahead of that curve. Let's think already and be ready, and let's create that wave. There's that old story about leadership and the bow wave of leadership. You've probably seen it. Is it the ship that's creating the bow wave, or from a different perspective, the bow wave is leading the ship? It's in advance. It's actually that pressure there. That's what we all hope to create. We hope to create the momentum ourselves with this sector, not just for change in the maritime sector, but for the connections across all others. And I'm so privileged to be here with you guys, because you are true leaders representing the change that you've put here on the board. I just want to say two things. Thank you. Second, you have a ferry at 6:15, and there is one more thing that I really need you to do before you grab your stuff and head down to the ferry, which is at the end of this wharf, Dock 72. So downstairs, go to the public wharf, the ferry will take you. And that is sign up for the action areas. So before you leave, sign up for the action areas. The way this works, and it's a clever design so that we know who's done the sign up and who hasn't done the sign up. All right? Over there, you will see name tags organized alphabetically by first name. Alphabetically by first name. So my name is Nicholas. I look at the N, just to be very clear. Grab your name tag from there. You shouldn't have to look for it too long. You can reach around people. Don't be shy. Grab your name by first name, and then move it to these grey hypertiles on one of the action areas. Green corridors, the policy imperative, short-term action, need for human sustainability, trade and supply chain. We're going to spend 2 hours in the action areas tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you tonight. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Have a great evening.